The next presenter of the afternoon is Massimo Candela. Massimo is a senior engineer, senior software engineer at NTT, focused on research and development of applications to guide decisions and to facilitate day-to-day internet operations. Some of the open source tool he has developed are go-to resources in nowadays for many network operators to monitor certain aspects of internet performance. Currently, he is also contributing to automation and monitoring of global IP network at NTT. Massimo, I suggest you to keep in mind that we will have the last 3 to 4 minutes for the Q&A section. Over to you. Thank you.
So thank you very much for the introduction. Hello, everybody. Also, thank you for inviting me here. For me, a pleasure to be able to present here. So, yes, my name is Massimo Candela. I'm a software engineer at NTT, and I work on automation and monitoring of the network, and talking of today about BGP monitoring and how BGP monitoring can be used for also support RPKI deployment. The presentation is also a sort of tutorial. You will be able to, if you follow, you will be able to monitor your sources in a few minutes. So, tool that I'm talking about is called BGP Alerter. It is open source released under NTT license. We release it on this repository on GitHub, the entire source code. We developed because we needed a way to monitor for our prefixes if they're losing visibility or heights, and after we added a lot of
Massimo, if
yes.
I may just intervene, we are just able to hear you hear an echo, so the audio is not very clear.
Okay, I'm using the headphones, so let me check if I improve that by
Is this better now?
Yeah, you may go ahead if in case I will interrupt further.
Yeah, let's see if this. I'm using the headphones. So I'm not sure.
Much better now. Much better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I was saying the tool name is BGP Alerter, open source, BSD3, and it does BGP monitoring. It works in real time, so you will get notified in a matter of seconds if something goes wrong. And the main goal that we had was to make it easy to use. So it does include auto configuration and doesn't require you to collect data because it uses public repositories. So essentially, it's an application that you download, you run it, you type the autonomous system, and it just works. It starts monitoring your autonomous system. So the reason why we developed that, in addition to the fact that we needed that, is we believe that monitoring the correctness of BGP is a fundamental activity for any operator on the internet. So you always should monitor your network. And a lot of people, when I talk about BGP monitoring, they immediately think about hijack detection. BGP monitoring is not only hijack detection. We should stop thinking that the other peoples are the ones that they do errors, so we don't do errors. But BGP monitoring is also to identify what your autonomous system, what you are doing wrong, and to timely identify that. So for example, if you are the majority of the issue going on at the moment are related to, for example, misconfiguration typos or things like this. So if you start announcing something that you were not supposed to announce because, for example, you did a typo, you want to get immediately notified, or if you just deployed a configuration and your prefixes are losing visibility, well, in that case also you would like to be immediately notified. And this is what BGP Alerter offers in addition to the hijack detection. So what you can monitor with this tool when your prefix lose visibility. You can get notified if you get hijacked, if your prefixes are you announce something RPKI invalid or not covered by road, or some prefix that you never announced before, or also you can specify conditions on the SPAT and getting notified when such a SPAT appear in the data. This is an example of what you will see. We have a Slack channel that we use internally. This is, of course, example test messages, but this is what you can get from this monitor. So now this is the real tutorial. So if you follow, I'll show you how to start monitoring. So the first thing, you go in the GitHub repository. You can click on this link. If you don't have the slides with you, you can go on Google and type NTT BGP Alerter. You will find this as a first repo. After you go here on the right, where there is the releases 1.26. The latest release is 1.26.2. This picture is not really updated, but you click there, you go in the release page, and you find here at the bottom the binaries, the compiled version for Linux, macOS, and Windows, and you can just use this to run it, or you can download the source code and run directly the source code, or you can download the source code and compile and create your own application, your own binary. Or if you like Docker, you can find also BGP Alerter in Docker app and run it in Docker. So we will use the binary in this demo. And this is the setup. So essentially, as I said, is you download it. This is the link with the latest stable release. You download it with wget, you make it executable, and you run it. That's all. That basically is the entire installation. Now, when you run it the first time, you will get the BGP Alerter will check for a configuration. If there is no configuration, it will ask you if you want to do a configuration, which is the first question. The second question, it will ask you which autonomous system or more than one you want to monitor. And after, it will ask you if part of your address space is announced by another autonomous system. If you don't know, answer yes, well, you should know. And the last question is if you want to get notified every time you announce a new prefix. This, I would always answer yes to this one, because it will detect if, for example, you start announcing something for error, but also it will let you know if you are announcing something that you were supposed to announce. It will let you know that maybe it's the time to update your configuration of BGP Alerter, and so add the new prefixes that you are announcing. So BGP Alerter after will start doing some magic, and at the end it will prompt you with monitoring, or what it starts monitoring based on your autonomous system. When you read the monitoring, it means the application is already up and running, is already downloading data, is already filtering. So what you can do, if you want, you can kill it, and if you run it again, you will see that the configuration that you did before is stored, so you don't have to answer those questions anymore. So you can just run this application in background, and that's all. If your prefixes are not covered by ROS, you will get a warning, because there is a final step where basically BGP Alerter does a cross-validation with RPKI, but the warning is just to let you know that maybe you should review this information, the prefix list by hand, but it will work anyway, so don't be scared about the warning. So where do you find your logs? Well, you find it, where do you find the alerts? Well, by default, they go inside the logs directory, which has this file reports, where you can find this prefix is not visible, this prefix has been hijacked, or things like this. But this is not the optimal way of doing this. Ideally, you want to connect BGP Alerter to a more real-time approach to get notified. BGP Alerter already includes by default email, Slack, Alerta, which is an open source dashboard, Kafka, Syslog, WebEx, Mattermost, Telegram, pushover that it goes on both Android and iOS, and whatever HTTP endpoint. So you can create your own API that receives post requests and you get the alert. You can also create different user groups, so you can monitor 2 autonomous systems, and each of them with a specific different set of users that they receive the alerts. And you can also basically store the single BGP updates that trigger the alerts. So not only the warning, but also not only the alerts, but also the BGP messages if you want to do the troubleshooting later. So this is an example of report by email. This is the Alerter dashboard, which is also open and easy to use. And just as a slide, if you feel the BGP Alerter is, in theory, this tool is designed to be absolutely silent if your network does have any issue. If you feel that your configuration is noisy, you should update to the latest version of BGP Alerter and update probably the config.yaml. Probably you are an old user of BGP Alerter, and we did a good amount of improvement to keep the throttling and noise down. So in particular, there is this threshold mean pierce. There is a parameter that you should set to a reasonable value. There is documentation online. But you can follow, as I said, the default example. And if you have prefixes that they are used for testing, you can exclude them from monitoring. I repeat, this tool, like we have it, it's like, I think the last warning that we got was like first days of May. So it should be really silent. So now you go here in the config.yaml, which is the configuration that was generated by automatically. And in particular, we focus on this monitor part, and you see all the type of monitoring, like for hijack, disability, and RPKI, the one at the bottom. We will come back to this one. So you keep scrolling and you have the reports, which are the one that they like, for example, to log on files. But you also see, like, for example, if you want to send by email, you take this part, you comment it out, and you set, of course, the password and whatever, and it will send emails, or you have Slack or whatever. You don't have to install anything because they are already included in the binary that you download. So final thing, if you monitor in production, you should always monitor also the process. So monitor the monitor. So why that? Because as I said, it's a tool that is silent, and you want to know if it's silent because nothing is happening on your network, or because maybe the connection is down or something. So you take this process monitor section, you comment, there are various options to do the periodic status check, but I will show you the first available, which is the uptime API, which it creates an API on port 8011 in this case, and this API will tell you what's the status. This is an example of the API. So it has warning false. When you see warning false, everything is fine. If you see warning true, it tells you also what is the problem. You can also check only for, you don't have to read the JSON. If you want, you can also check only for the HTTP status code. So if it's 200, it's fine. Otherwise, you have an issue. So now, how this can support your RPKI deployment. So what does it mean? That this monitor can provide you with like information about if you're announcing something that is invalid or not covered by ROAS like this, and it will also tell you which ROA is the covering one or the closest one. It is useful before RPKI deployment because you can use it to test what it will be to have RPKI deployed. During RPKI deployment, since it will let you know about RPKI invalids, and after, since in addition to let you know RPKI invalids, it will also remind you if you start announcing prefixes without any ROAS sign, which it's useful. So if we go back in the configuration, you have this monitor RPKI, and this monitor RPKI has two important parameters. One is this pre-cache ROAS. This check and cover, which is set to false by default. So what that means? It means that when it's set to false, it will only notify you for RPKI invalids. When you set this check and cover to true, it will also notify you for prefixes without ROA at all. And the other parameter is this VRP provider, which is set to NTT. A VRP provider is essentially a provider that will it's somebody that puts online a public repository of validated prefixes, and essentially you can use it. Basically, it's doing the RPKI validation externally, and you can use other providers like NTT, RIPE, and Cloudflare. So now,
Massimo,
yes.
just to remind you, we have 5 more minutes left.
Yes, 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 don't worry. So now the important part about having a VRP provider is that you are using it for monitoring. So you are not using for enforcing RPKI policies, but still you should definitely do your validation in-house. You should do your validation yourself. It is useful because it just runs, it works, and you use trusted third party, like for example, RPKI, but still you should do it in-house, even only if it's monitoring. To do that, if you use whatever RPKI validator, they have output in JSON, and you can say to BGPalerter to monitor such file. I provide you the example with the RPKI client, which I propose you, and here you have various, you can install it. It's available for various platforms. Also, there is this JQ utility that you can use to manipulate the JSON to make it compatible if you use a different format. And here you have a copy and paste one-line command to basically use RPKI client with the -J to produce the JSON and export the JSON and create a VRP file for BGPalerter. So what you do now, you go in this config you replace the VRP provider with VRP file. You set the JSON file where you generated, and BGPalerter will automatically watch that file. And every time that changes, it will re-update the raw definition. So you do your RPKI validation in-house, how it should be. And now, if you think about it, the VRP file is just a JSON file. Actually, I'll show it to you. It contains a list of SN, prefix, and max length. So you could actually fake these VRPs for yourself. You fake them, you put whatever you feel like, and you can use it to essentially feel like how it would be to sign this RAW. So you can run BGPalerter with those fake RAW definitions for maybe a month and check if you will start at some point announcing RPKI invalid, even if they are not invalid for real. Also, I found it useful to check if your organization is able to stick to the signed RAWs. So one of the most common errors is to sign RAWs with some prefix length, and after some time announcing the same prefix with a different prefix length, and it's going to be RPKI invalid. So maybe it's not so much to test your technical part, but also to test your organization in terms of if you have to synchronize better on what to announce. So I finish here. This is the GitHub repo, and these are my contacts. And also, if you have questions, that is the moment. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Massimo. Thanks, Massimo, for that developing that wonderful tool. I would now take a few of the questions that we can see at the Q&A section. First question is from Mahesh. Mahesh has asked, what are all the connectivity requirements BGP peerings required if I want to run BGPalerter?
So what are the requirements if you want to run BGPalerter?
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, you just actually it uses also in terms of resources on a machine. It uses almost anything. Our version identity uses around 140 megabytes of RAM, so it's not really a big deal, and it doesn't require a lot of CPU because it's filtered from the source. So you process only data related to your prefixes. So you don't need to do anything else. You don't need to do any peering or any data collection, or if you want, you can also pass those data, but it's not mandatory. You just run it.
I will take up one more question from Subramaniam. He has asked actually two questions. Is this applications open sourced, priced? If we have multiple city internet gateway and each city with multiple peerings, how do we go about implementing this design?
So the application, it is open source and it's under BSD3 license. So let me go back on the first slide. It is under BSD3, which means you can do whatever. And I repeat, it doesn't really matter about what is your current situation, because what it uses is public repositories, like in particular RPKI that has a point of view of more than 600 peers worldwide. So you essentially are going is going to take the data related to your autonomous system or related to your prefixes independently from who is announcing them. And you can essentially monitor it. It is not really related to where you do the monitor or what is your current configuration or from where you're doing the announcement. It doesn't really matter. You can do, if you want, different configuration, different autonomous system, and or different prefixes, but that's up to you.
Great. Thanks, Massimo, for that presentation. There are a few more questions on the Q&A section. I would request you if you could take that, answer them or type them on the Q&A section as we're running out of time. Thanks a lot, Massimo, for joining and
thank you very much.
This wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks a lot.